Yeah. Now, so just to caveat this whole thing here, this is not like this is not us sitting here saying like, "Oh, good, COVID's killing the bad people." This is not how I want to win elections.
No.
This
The
is
the
this
I
is
the
this is the tragic way to win elections. Like the Democrats are saying you need to do these things to protect yourselves, and the Republicans are being like, "Oh no, you're trying to control us." And it's like, "No, we're trying to get you to not die." So now this was an interesting article. Apparently, it's possible that the deaths of anti-vaxxers from COVID actually impacted at least a couple of elections this year.
I mean, if more extremists, which are more likely to not take the vaccine due to those positions, died, I mean, I mean,
Yeah, no, but you see, that's the thing though. Is that like, yeah, 1.1 million people died of COVID in the United States since the outbreak, and yeah, that's a lot. But when you spread it out over the entire country, it ends up not being that much on a regional, local basis or whatever. Um,
unless of course you're counting.
unless, of course, you're looking at the fact that after the vaccine came out, Republicans started dying at a much higher rate than Democrats.
And when you consider that a lot of those areas that were Republican strongholds are such because of the way that we've gentrified the not gentrified, but the way we've gerrymandered those districts. It
Yeah.
would make sense that if you're seeing more deaths of a particular demographic in those areas,
Well, that's no,
they might flip.
that part doesn't really work out though, because those areas tend to be so heavily Republican that like the number of deaths that they had, even
They
if all
can
those
take the
people were still
loss.
alive, yeah, they can afford the loss in those spots. So this one, okay, so yeah, there were a couple key races. Like this is the first time since 1934 that the president's party did not lose any Senate seats or state legislative chambers in the midterm. Um, I thought I think they mean like the total number stays the same, because I seem to recall they
Yeah,
did lose a Senate seat, but then they gained another one.
yeah, it's a net gain versus loss
Yeah,
as
yeah.
opposed to
And so the main
keeping
three,
all the incumbents.
yeah, so the main three factors that are attributed to this are Americans don't like Trumpism anymore, because like pretty much every extreme Trump candidate lost except for a couple like Lobos and MTG. The overturning of Roe versus Wade, which someone introduced legislation, I think it was today, to try and criminalize abortion federally. It's like, did you not learn your lesson from the midterms?
Where is so I actually have, I believe, no, it's not criminalizing abortion is the one that I was thinking of. I actually have a bill up here that I was planning on covering a little later that's about trying to remove all taxpayer funding from abortion, but not necessarily criminalizing it. But you might be talking about a different bill. This is the one that I've got up that I'm covering later.
Okay. Yeah, there's a little bit of an argument going on in my chat. I think they're talking about this article. There might be something that I missed in the chat though, but really still questioning the legitimacy of this. Quite a few variables to verify it. Yeah, no, this is not a conclusive thing by any stretch of the imagination. Like this article does not say that like, oh, these elections would have been different had a bunch of Republicans not died of COVID. There's a lot of like assumptive math calculations going on, but I
Yeah.
like assumptive math calculations. Those can be fun. If you've ever read the book What If, I'm currently reading the book What If 2 to my kids. There's a lot of that going on in What If. There's a whole chapter where he goes into how like if you're doing calculations in oh, what's it called? When you round to the nearest order of magnitude. So like you just want a ballpark figure that has the right number of zeros after the number. It doesn't really matter. And so it's like when you round using this particular style of math, it's like, how many arms do people have? One. How old am I? 100. Because and there's something like 3 and up round round up, whereas like 2 and below round down for some reason. I don't. He had a calculation that explained that. I don't even want to pretend to understand that calculation, but like there's a lot of fun stuff like that where it's like, well, using this type of math, I'm 100 years old. I have 1 arm, 1 leg.
I mean, you're getting around pretty well for that.
I have 10 children. But yeah, so this is that sort of thing where it's just kind of ballparking it, and it's like it's potentially. So yeah, I'm sure by now we've all heard about the study that came out that showed that since the vaccine became available, people who are registered Democrats are dying at a significantly lower rate of COVID than people who are registered Republicans. So like,
gee, wonder why?
Yeah, because Republicans are being anti-vax. Yeah, I can skip most of this.
It's such a weird position to kind of linchpin on, because it used to be that the anti-vax movement, by and large, that was the fringe position. That was the thing that, like, you had to go to the Alex Joneses, you had to go to the Glenn Becks, you had to go to those people to find it. But it just became kind of a mainstay of the GOP in the last couple of years, weirdly.
Yeah, so the study found that Republicans and Democrats from March 2020 to December 2021, Democrats were dying at a 76% higher rate than, or no, sorry, Republicans were dying at a 76% higher rate than Republicans, which means, so for every Democrat that died, 1.76 Republicans were dying. Abortion is a right, states' rights, states enshrine abortion, federal ban. The logic doesn't make sense unless they're just hypocritical. Yeah, they're just hypocritical. That's Pumpkin Jay. Hi, Jay.
Hypocritical to the, like, utilitarian to the point of hypocrisy is what it ends up being. Like, there's only so far you can go with, well, whatever works. Eventually you just kind of hit, wait, that one contradicts everything you've just said.
Yeah, no, that's like the I have a PragerU tweet coming up later, but it's like they're very much pro death penalty. You're like, oh no, with DNA evidence, it's nearly impossible to execute an innocent person nowadays. And meanwhile, they've been tweeting out for the last like 2 weeks about how the government makes everything worse, the government mangles everything it touches, the government can't do anything right. It's like, who do you think is collecting and analyzing this DNA evidence, Dennis?
It's like so do you know who Brett Cooper is? She works for the Daily Wire.
I'm familiar with the name. I don't know details.
Okay, so she did a video recently that I did a response to, where she was going over the fact that in Indonesia, sex before marriage has just been like fully criminalized there, with a jail time for a year for anybody who does it. And that includes foreigners. Like, if you and your girlfriend go to Indonesia and y'all have sex in a hotel, you've just committed a crime worth going to jail for a year for. And that's just recent legislation that just passed. And she was sitting there going, it's their culture, it's fine, there's nothing wrong with it, I don't see the issue there. And I'm like, she's ignoring the part where she's trying to not say she wants that same kind of theocratic bullshit here. But having listened to enough Ben Shapiro, I know that if a law was put through, or maybe not so much Shapiro, because for some things he actually magically manages to mellow out a little bit. Matt Walsh, though, seemingly never does. So I can just imagine somebody puts forth that type of bill here in the States, and he would just clap his hands and go, I'm all for it. Yes, we need that.
Yeah.
Party of personal liberty, that thing.
Yeah, so everybody apparently watched my short on PragerU, because I just released it. That's why it's on my mind, is I just released a short on that today, their stance on the death penalty. Their whole argument for the death penalty is entirely based on emotion. I want that guy to be murdered because we need to get retribution for the horrible thing that he did. That's their whole argument. And it's like, okay, how many innocent people are you willing to kill for the sake of vengeance? Because, like, if that's your argument, if the answer is higher than 0, then you don't have a moral ground. Yeah, no, but like that's my argument against it. Like, yeah, there are instances where, yes, I feel like I would want the death penalty to be used against a person in that scenario, but that sets a precedent, and you can't do it on a, like, you can't do legal stuff like this on a case-by-case basis. It has to be done, like, there has to be a rule that you follow that's very clear, and there's too much nuance there for that sort of thing. Like, it's going to be abused by judges, and, like, realistically, even if there's a confession, a lot of times you can't trust the confession, because, like, police will beat confessions out of people. Police will hold people in a cell for, like, they'll hold them in an interrogation room for like 16 hours without letting them use the washroom, and then be like, oh, well, yeah, if you just sign this confession here, we'll let you go home for the night. And they have all sorts of scummy ways to get confessions out of people for things that can end up with them getting the death sentence. And so, yeah, anyway, that's a tangent. So yeah, going back to the math, let's just skip ahead. Yeah, so this whole thing is basically them saying, like, yes, we know that this math does not really hold up to scrutiny. This is not a sure thing. These are just these are just plausible elections that could have been altered by how many people died from COVID. So in 2022, Arizona had 32,000 COVID deaths at the rate at which Republicans die more of COVID than Democrats. That should be approximately 7,000 Democrats and 12,000 Republicans that died in that case. And the Attorney General's race was won by the Democrat Chris Hayes by 280 votes. And this is the best case that they have, the one where it's like, those numbers might not hold nationally. There's like, I think those were the Ohio and Florida numbers that they considered together, so it's not like the whole national numbers.
It's not representative of the whole nation.
Yeah, so like, it could not actually have impacted this race that much. However, if the numbers in Arizona are not that far off of the numbers elsewhere, then that means that this election could very well have been different if the Republicans had not gone anti-vax.
I think that kind of holds true twice over, though, because not only would you statistically have more Republicans alive, but you also might have fewer people who were very science-minded, like the types of people that the reason that they are transphobic is because they say, well, the science agrees with me, that type of shit.
Yeah.
Like those type of people who are in the Republican Party. I can imagine that a few of those types of people probably ended up flipping, at the very least, to centrist over the anti-vax stuff, and they were like, wait a minute, but I believe in the science. And the science says vaccine's good. Why does my party say vaccine's bad? So,
yeah,
I don't know. But regardless.
Yeah. Now, so just to caveat this whole thing here, this is not like this is not us sitting here saying like, oh, good, COVID's killing the bad people. This is not how I want to win elections.
No.
This is the tragic way to win elections. Like, the Democrats are saying you need to do these things to protect yourselves, and the Republicans are being like, oh no, you're trying to control us. And it's like, no, we're trying to get you to not die.
The ideal is always to have the ideal is like the marketplace of ideas type of shit. Everybody put their ideas down, vote on the ones that work, and the ones that don't will fall out. That's the ideal. We have never once ever met that ideal.
Progress Only says, I'll kidnap 1,000 children before I let this company die. JP Waternoose, aka Dennis Prager animated. Oh, that's good.
Monsters Inc. was a good movie.
It was a good movie. And then the other two are kind of like, the numbers don't quite work out. So, like, Pennsylvania House District 151 was decided by 63 votes. But when you run the math, that's basically 40 extra Republicans died than Democrats. So it's not quite enough. But then you can imagine that, like, if the numbers were just like a little tiny bit worse than in other areas of the country in Pennsylvania, that would be enough in this one. But yeah, just like with the quick and dirty math that they're doing there, it's plausible that it could have affected this one, but probably not. I think it was the same thing with Michigan State District 12. And then there were a couple Massachusetts districts that 2nd Essex District was won by a single vote, and the 1st Middlesex District was won by 7 votes. So those two definitely...
They definitely were... Yeah.
Yeah. Now, that said, it's Massachusetts, so, like, they've got a Democrat supermajority already, so it wouldn't matter if these 2 seats went Republican. The result would be the same in Massachusetts. Mm-hmm. But it's still a scenario where, like, the governance of the country is potentially different than it could be if Republicans hadn't gone anti-vax. And unvaccinated people lean Republican by a 3-to-1 margin. So for every one person that is a Democrat that's not vaccinated, there are 3 Republicans that are not vaccinated. And
that's a scary number.
Yeah, and they die at up to 15 times the rate of vaccinated people, but the unvaccinated people, not Republicans.
And that's probably not just because of the vaccine, but that's also it's a combination of not being vaccinated and taking more risks going out and getting infected. Do you remember when Dennis Prager was like deliberately trying to get himself infected?
Kitsune, it was 1st Middlesex District. Margaret Scarsdale, she won by 7 votes. Sorry, there was. I think Kitsune might live in that district.
Fair.
But yeah, no, and apparently their anti-vax stuff is getting worse. Like before, there didn't used to be a partisan divide in who would like take the measles vaccine, but now there is. And actually, that was more of a left-leaning thing. It would be like the natural green mommy type people that would be like, oh no, I'm not getting my children the measles vaccine. I'm going to give them a healthy immune system by letting them play on dirty floors and feeding them kale or whatever.
I'm going to feed them half-rotted apples. That's going to solve world hunger and also solve their immune system problems at the same time.
Yeah, but like, so like being anti-vax generally fell more towards left-leaning people before COVID, and now not by much. Just like there wasn't much of a partisan divide, but like if somebody was anti-vax, they were probably also kind of new age wooey.
New age wooey on the left and like hyper anti-government stuff on the right.
Yeah.
It's sad to think about, because you got to think, it's not just that elections, like their actual chances of winning elections go down as they literally lose constituents to a disease that is not only preventable via lifestyle choices, but can be mitigated with medication that we know and understand. But you got to think that, like, at the ages that a lot of these people are when they're dying, these are people's moms, dads, grandpas, etc. Like, these are people in positions of authority in their own families many times. And so now, like, the voting, the way that family operates, the way that family votes, the way that family functions kind of gets upended in more ways than one. There's a whole domino effect that happens here. And it's sad.
Yeah. Kitsune Cavalier says, okay, we've got plenty of organic nuts here. My girlfriend and I are amongst them. I don't know why this isn't showing up in my feed, but it's showing up on my stream chat. Neuromptoput says, if you don't have an immune system, vaccines wouldn't do anything. It's like, yeah, that's a good point. I'm not sure.
That's how vaccines work.
I'm not sure why it's not showing up on my thing. So like I would highlight that, but yeah, I'm not seeing it for some reason. YouTube is messed up when it comes to their live chat thing. Like, I don't know if y'all have noticed, but I've been like highlighting the super chat things before the super chat notification comes through. Sometimes the notification comes before the comment comes. I don't know. It's weird. I don't understand. I don't understand how my job works. Okay, moving on.